Hi, it's Merryl from my mystery school, and in May we're going to have 4 major planets move backwards, go retrograde. And what this means is we're going to have a time where we feel we have to pull inwards, to reflect, to be introspective, and the planets aren't letting us move forward in this stage. It's quite big to have 4 planets move backwards. It's often the case there's 1 or 2. Rarely is there none. But at this point, with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction that happened in January, and all the changes with COVID, with climate change, with the huge way that it's affected our daily life, our daily routines, and also our collective picture of what it means to be Capricornian, productive, respectable, routine and dependable. We're being forced into a place where we have to adapt and be flexible. And that's the way the planets are pushing us. The current, the tide, is moving us to more flexibility. On April the 24th, Pluto went retrograde. On May 11, Saturn goes retrograde. On May 13, Venus goes retrograde in Gemini. And the next day, on May 14, Jupiter goes retrograde, crossing the path with Pluto. Saturn's going to catch up with them all and move forward again. And this point at around 25 degrees Capricorn is a real power place. So if you're born Capricorn and your birthday's around that middle part of January, 15, 16, 17 up to about 20, if you're born in the early part of the 20s in January in Aquarius, you will also be quite powerfully affected by this and all these huge changes that the outer planets are making. So Pluto going retrograde on the 24th. It'll stay that way until the 4th of October, moving back only a few degrees. Next up, Saturn starts to move back on May the 11th. It'll stay that way until the 29th of September, so you can see they're quite closely linked. Saturn's in Aquarius at the moment, but on July the 2nd, it'll move back into Capricorn, and we're going to have a revisit of the structures of the old ways of Saturn's law and authority and restriction. It's going to come up to that point of 25 degrees Capricorn. Crucial point before it turns forward again. Like I said, the end of September. Jupiter going back on the 13th of May through to the 17th of September. So you see we've got this little clump happening at the end of September through to early October, where the energy is going to push forward. While Jupiter goes retrograde, we pull in, we contract. Normally, Jupiter is the energy that wants to expand, it wants to grow, it wants to go way beyond where we've been. But when it's in contraction phase, it sort of soaks up everything around it. And around that end of September and early October, we're going to see this bleh kind of as it spits it out again. And then Jupiter's going to move forward into Aquarius and join the other outer planet signs, opening up that air sign activity. Now, it has to be said, when planets turn retrograde, they aren't physically turning retrograde in the sky. It's from where we are on Earth, and our orbit is slightly elliptical, and we're watching those planets in the sky, and they start to cross over each other. Their path starts to cross over each other from where we are on Earth. So it's a symbolic energy. It doesn't block the energy. Difficult aspects block planetary energy. When a retrograde planet is moving backwards, what it does is it distorts the energy. It inhibits it in some way. It turns it inward. And that's why it's such a powerful time that over the whole world we're going to be seeing around about 4 to 5 months of more looking at the internal and the inner workings. It also has the opportunity to expose the energy of these planets. And Pluto is concerned with power, Saturn is concerned with authority and law, Jupiter, like I said, is concerned with growing and expanding, but it can do that quite ruthlessly and arrogantly. So we're looking back at the way power has been used, the way power was corrupted, greed that comes up with Jupiter, harshness and austerity that come up with Saturn. Where rules and authority and this sudden rush to grow hasn't worked for us. In this same phase, in this middle patch of May, we have Venus in Gemini moving backwards. Now, Venus doesn't often go backwards. It's about once every 2 years. So when she does, she spends a much longer time in that sign, giving that Venus energy of self-worth, of relationship, of relating, of beauty. And in Gemini, it's about the beauty of conversation and connection. It's about beautiful solutions that are very functional and elegant. While Venus is moving backwards, one thing it affects is the way we communicate, the way we connect in our neighbourhoods, in our local area, to family and siblings, issues around education, issues around problem solving. And Venus is going to slow this down. Venus is also concerned with outward beauty. So when Venus is retrograde, we have to get our sense of self-worth and our sense of recognition and appreciation from within. We may be wearing a face mask. It will definitely affect our appearance. There's less emphasis in this period between mid-May and it's early June. June 24, sorry, just after solstice, that we're still going to be in some way hiding our appearance and not needing external validation. Now, for celebrities and influencers, this is quite a big deal because they've based their self-worth on how many followers and likes they get. And for some reason, the cosmos is saying this isn't a valid way to go forward. Venus doesn't mind being in Gemini. It's a sparkly conversation, it's flirty, it's fun, it's playful. And it might be that thing of getting back to work and re-getting into your workmate relationships and that fun of socialising. But we're still going to be a bit reticent, a bit hidden, a bit pulled back before Venus really lets us shine after the solstice in June. When Venus is retrograde, it also means that relationships can cool. You may question friendships. You may have moved more to your local community friendships rather than the ones that are far away. There's something you might have seen in this time, something that Pluto's brought up, something dark and hidden, something Saturn's brought up about feeling overpowered or over-dominated, something overbearing, that's come up in your relationships. That means when Venus goes retrograde, you close a door. Now, it might need Venus to go forward again at the end of June before you can fully enact this cooling. But while you're in this cooling off period, you're going to reflect on what appreciation and self-love really means to you. And if you're not getting it from certain people, certain friendships, certain family members, or certain work relationships, or your relationship to money, because Venus rules that too, you're going to have a real place of reflection and redefining what it is that makes you feel worthy. While Saturn is retrograde, we tend to feel frustrated, especially since it starts its retrograde period at that very beginning of Aquarius. It's 2 degrees Aquarius at the moment, and it will slowly tick over and go back into that world of the material, the physical, the needing to be productive and work for what, the recognition and admiration you get. When Saturn moves into Aquarius, we're going to be taking that to a new level. That's not bound on what you own or what you possess or what is material. It's more technological, a bit more futuristic, much more global, the global community. But while Saturn goes backward, we're very frustrated with that. We can be very hard on ourselves And it can be an indication of that feeling worthless, being a bit depressed, the kind of depression where you can't get things done, where you feel very undervalued and underproductive and not seen for the you drop responsibilities when Saturn goes backwards. So again, it's about coming into your own authority and being answerable to yourself. When Jupiter goes retrograde, instead of expanding, it contracts. It's like an accordion, squeezing out the last bits. And it's doing this little death dance all the time with Pluto. Both of these are purging and detoxing, sucking up the poison and reevaluating, transforming it into what Jupiter would like, which is hope, connection to spirit, a broader way of looking, a way of bringing in difference and establishing new belief systems and laws and knowledge that support a new era. When Jupiter goes retrograde, we go into ourselves. We can lose confidence. We can feel a bit small. It is actually a good time to lose weight because Jupiter expands what it touches. And if it's on your ascendant or on a key planet in your astrology, for instance, it can be a time you put on weight. But this might be the time that you pull in and you really look at what you want to shed, what you don't need to live with. This idea of indulgence and over display is kind of coming back on its face here. When Jupiter goes retrograde, you hold off wanting to know new information, and it can be very resentful and frustrating. So you're invited to keep you cool in this time, and whatever you wanted to expand outwards, come back into the planning, the support structures that Saturn wants you to have, the healthier use of power that Pluto wants you to have. While Pluto is contracting, anything that's pushing or exerting power is going to be really squeezed. It's going to inflate and pop and explode. So we're expecting a few of these sort of inflatory kind of gossip, conspiracy theories, overestimation, extending ourselves. But while Pluto's reversed and while these other planets are all retrograde, it's overexpansion can't really work. It will deflate and drop back down into a place of common sense, into a place of retraction and introspection. The key times that Jupiter is going to be crossing over with Pluto, and these are big times. The first one happened on the 4th of April this year, and then the next one is on the 13th of June, final one 12th of November. And that's a real key time. Jupiter wanting to expand, Pluto wanting to break down and purge and detox. And these key meetings, they might actually indicate times when the coronavirus is flourishing more, is part of this purge that the collective needs to let the planet heal, to reevaluate our routines and what we use to give us authority and perspective, because our perspective has now totally changed and we've been pushed into the future. Those key times of the year, the next one being in June and the final one in November, mean that real progress, this real Jupiter expansion, this move into higher levels, can't really take place until the end of the year. And that's also going to be when Saturn comes from 25 degrees Capricorn and starts moving forward again into Aquarius. Once that happens in December, around Christmas time, that's when we really take hold into an adoption of that new normal that we've been talking about. I hope you've enjoyed that little look at retrograde planets, and you can get yourself prepared in May through the next 4 or 5 months of knowing research. Get behind the scenes. Don't be pushing things, because unless they're ready to happen, the universe won't allow it to happen. If something evades your grip at this time, regroup, reflect, and build your inner strength. The universe never lets us go. And I really believe that this whole clearing that's happening is part of a bigger picture, that we're learning new things and we're racing towards that Aquarian age of technology and connection and kind of operating on a higher dimension, more holistic, more equal, with more freedom and more self-reliance. That's my take on it. I'm Merryl Key from My Mystery School. Like, follow, share, subscribe, and look out for also my full moon, Scorpio full moon reading, which picks up some of these themes.